All right, what's up? So today I'm going to talk you through a little tutorial of how to design audio reactive visuals for LED art using a tool called Chromatik. If you know it as LX, that's what it used to be called. It's the same thing. And we'll also be introducing a tool called VJLab, which listens to music like a human does and then outputs in real time separated stems of the audio so that you can make different parts of your visual react in real time in sync with the music without having to move faders and do it yourself. So let's kind of just show you, like, what does this actually look like? So here's LX, or Chromatik, and we've got a big installation here. For those of you who know about Titanic Zen, this is our giant, several 100,000 LED stage, but any kind of installation will work. And we got some patterns running on it, and that's cool. But if we start to play, say, some music, pretty sick. And as you can see, VJLab was kind of parsing those things in real time and sending out the bass, the drums, the vocal. And it really just doesn't hit the same without it. I mean, if I were to exit this and if we were just to watch it as we play, it just doesn't hit the same. So, cool. Let's just talk through how actually we get this set up and running. So first of all, it's useful to think just a little bit about what happens during a live show. So during a live show, we've got a DJ, right? And they're playing on some Pioneer decks, or could be any other deck, but for our setup, they use that. And while that does send some OSC data for the beats, which helps us sync to just the grid of the track the DJ is playing, we don't really know anything about what's playing, and the visuals don't either. So the raw audio, we actually pipe through a little neural network we call STEMI and a application we call VJLab for visual jockeys, the artists who play visuals, and this pipes it into our stage. So what does that have to do with us as visual artists? Well, as we're preparing for a show, we want to be able to see what's actually going to happen in our simulation environment using the same kinds of audio and the same kinds of tracks that we would in a live show. So all this takes is we download a little thing called Black Hole. We pipe the audio through that, and that allows us to see it on our desktop and into our program, VJLab, and into our simulation environment. So, cool. How do we do that? If you just Google Black Hole Audio Mac, you're going to find this application, and you're right there. And you can either donate the money. Devin is an incredible developer and he spends a lot of time doing it, so I would suggest if you can, because it's a really incredible tool. But if you can't, you can also just click I can't afford, and either way, it will get sent to your email. So once you've installed, it's not really an application, so to speak, on Mac, but it will be running kind of all the time. And then what you can do is if you go to Audio MIDI Setup, and you look here on the side, you can see I've done a few things already. For example, what you might want to do, you can see I'm wearing earpods here, right? And if I go to create a multi-output device, I can actually say, oh, I want earpods and Black Hole to go to the same place. Or if you prefer to work on it while you're listening through speakers, you can do something like that. And that's really all you need to do, because then when you go back, you're going to have something like this. And you kind of just remember that because you're going to select it. So you actually can just go up to your sound, and once it's selected, that's where it'll be outputting. Again, what does this mean? This means our audio is going to Black Hole, but also to your headphones. I guess I should have another little arrow there. So now you can hear it, but also the neural net can hear it. Cool. So once we have the audio, the reason that we want to have it in this sort of data form is that, if I were to play a track like this, you can see that the pattern of kicks, or of the melody, or of the harmonies, can actually look very different. And so that's why we want to use this neural network that's going to output that data, because just using a simple filter or trying to, only use frequencies below 200 hertz or something like that, it's going to vary from track to track, and it won't give you the perfect fidelity of something like VJLab. So now that you've got Black Hole installed, right, let's get you set up with VJLab. And you may need to load settings. So for example, you could go to load and open, and what we provide basically, there's a default settings here that's great to use, and that already maps Chromatik and the OSC to the right IP, which is your local host, and the right port. Ignore the comma, it's just a formatting thing. And if we go over to Chromatik, you'll see that if I were to go over here, let me just make sure that my little camera thing is in the way here. Yeah, so if you were to go here, you can see in the OSC tab that we've got OSC coming in at port 3030 on localhost. And that is indeed what we see in VJLab, right? And if you want to dig in more, you can see that we do send every 11 milliseconds, and so on and so forth. And we're sending over OSC. So cool. Now you've got VJLab set up. You've loaded the JSON parameters into it, right? Which is the setting that just basically tell us, it kind of encodes basically just like which drums and which vocals you're going to send. I have some preset ones here. So for example, you can look at this bass. This is like a normal bass, and the smoothing just controls basically how fast it reacts. So there's a slow one that's a little slower, and there's a fast one that is, you guessed it, a little faster. So once again, if I were to play, let's say a track here.
Flickering silently beneath the black screen.
And you can see this one is a little smooth, and this one is a little more immediate. And if it's glitching, that's okay. It's just the UI. I actually recommend that when you're playing live, that you actually throw it onto this. But when you're just tinkering around, this view is pretty good. So those are being injected. Great. So returning to our overall setup here, right? We have got Black Hole set up. We are now sending the audio over to VJLab, and we've got the OSC coming out and into Chromatik. So awesome. Now we are kind of ready for the fun part. So let's just talk through a little bit of what's going on here. So we've got different channels, and as you can see in each one of these, if I were to select like a different one, there's actually specific presets. So let's kind of solo this. Let's take this channel down so we don't really see it, and let's turn this up. So let's take a look at, in this channel high, in this pattern electric, you see a number of audio stems, and these actually correspond to our different stems. And you can see I can actually change this. This one is drums, bass, other, and vocals. And as you can see, there's some different parameters that we've encoded that sort of control different things. So for example, if I were to take this and just turn up the spin, the thing would start spinning a lot faster. But if I want to say, let's go to the bass. If I wanted to encode every time the bass hit, the spin increasing, I'd select my audio stem for bass, I'd select my map, and I would select the spin. And as you can see, you've got no music playing, but if I were to do that, and that might be a little bit extreme. We can actually just isolate this effect to kind of show you, because there's other things going on. But let's try it again. I mean, let's go crazy here. Let's just see what that would look like. Honestly, it is kind of a cool effect. But you know, if we were to turn it down to say more of like kind of a reasonable number. And maybe we turn up our EMA just a little bit, or even down just a little bit. And if we wanted, we could map the size. And smooth it out a bit. So you might get the idea. And if we went to the drums, you know, let's see what I've got it doing. And it's useful to be able to try to inspect these and kind of see what's going on in Chromatic. But here I've got, you know, electric audio stem. I click on that again, and I can see, oh wow, I'm actually mapping it to 3 different things. And you can kind of see, because it will sort of highlight in here, you know, depending on which one I've got mapped. You can see that's the green color, so the drums is mapped to speed, and then to wow1, and then to size. And the size, it's not mapped very much, that's why you only see a little bit, but again, that's the modulation color. And you can even see it down, if you look kind of in the very lower left-hand corner, as I hover over things, that's like a useful way to see what's going on. But yeah, if we play the music again. And again, we could have it react faster, or really slow. If you have a really fast reaction time, that's you're reacting to the transients of the drum, like the individual hits, but be aware that it's going to be a little spikier, right? Because that raw signal will include the tiniest of hi-hats and, you know, the flams of the snare. Whereas if you turn it all the way up to something like, you know, nearly half a second, you're really more just saying, you know, when there starts to be a section with drums, you know, crank this modulation up in a certain way. So usually with drums, I'm going to leave it around something like, say, 47, 20 to 40 seconds, milliseconds is around the sweet spot, because that's higher than a transient, but lower than, say, multiple drum hits. And we can go back and turn back on all of our effects. And let's see kind of what we cooked up for vocals. Let's turn on vocals here. Now it's subtle. But you can see that we mapped it to brightness. And if we were to turn brightness down a bit more, sometimes you want to leave yourself a little bit of headroom for these effects. But here you can see and that's that vocal effect. just, again, some of this stuff is kind of eye candy, and you want it to just be sort of in just the right amounts. You know, too much, too fast. You have to remember this this stage is gigantic, and no matter what stage you're working with, you know, you can always kind of tell a new VJ because things will be too bright. Things will be too bright, or they'll have things moving too quickly, or they'll have too many colors. A lot of times, less is more, and really, I would suggest on trying to strive for that. Occasionally, you're going to want to let loose if there's a crazy drop, or you know, something is very different. But really, impact and the power of visuals is kind of defined by the range. So you want to be able to take things away and then bring them back. But if the fader is always all up and all the effects are always on, it's never on, so to speak. It's kind of about that difference between the two. So let's just recap. We talked a little bit about the different ways during a live show that data is being piped into your fixture or your LED stage. And again, this could be, you know, in Resolum or Touch Designer. We'll have more tutorials on that later. And you're taking this raw audio and piping it in sort of a live show situation to VJLab, and then similarly to stage. As you're preparing it though, you want to be able to understand what it's going to look like. So with Black Hole and using really anything you can play audio on, I could have done this with Spotify. This is not a record box specific thing. You know, we can still get the same kinds of effects. So, you know, if I were to just say, pick this one.
I ain't here in Sunday school. Amen. Get bread, sip one at the stove. Baptize the infinity pole. 3 wise hoes, what would Jesus do? Catch me on a block, slim big cock. 50 on a watch, make a white bitch cripple.
I love me some Young Gravy. But anyway, you can kind of see what's going on there. And by downloading Black Hole, getting that set up, by going to your audio MIDI setup and ensuring that you have the right outputs for your local environment, for like outputting to Black Hole, which is going to pipe it into VJLab. And then also your earpods or your speakers or whatever you want to listen to music through. It's going to get moved through OSC, which again, we set here through these OSC addresses and the ports, into your Chromatik. And in Chromatik, it gets routed through this audio stem input and into your patterns. And patterns are going to have these stems, which are basically just ways for you to map the effects of what you're doing and what you're playing into, you know, say parts of the, you know, the visual, without you having to do it manually in person. And what this is going to set you up to do is start to think about the phrasing of how you know, which patterns you want to pick and how you want to fade them in and out, and how you want to accentuate, you know, the real art of it throughout the night, and focus on what a human is best at, those artistic decisions, rather than trying to move faders at the rate of, you know, 11 milliseconds or however long these transients for drums or bass or vocals are. So that's it. And I really hope, you know, that, there we go. I really hope that this was helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit us up. And we hope VJLab is a cool new tool for it. Stay tuned for some more tutorials on different ways to use this, but let's start. So thanks, y'all.